Hey everyone, my name is Dominic. You're watching The Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And you might have remembered I did a review for this trade paperback a couple months ago. It's called Geiger. It was volume 1 by Geoff Johns and Gary Frank. It's the first effort that these creators are doing in their series called The Unnamed. The idea is that they're kind of modern, new American tall tales that are all, obviously fictitious and brand new, but it's all interwoven through the history of America, past, present, and future in the case of Geiger. Within the pages of Geiger, there was a character introduced named Junkyard Joe. I think this was in issue 5 or 6. And that character is actually being spun off into its own series called Junkyard Joe. The first of which, the first issue coming from Image and Mad Ghost, is coming out October 5th. And this is a really special comic, guys. Right now, some of the proceeds of these issues are going to 2 different veterans charities that are definitely worthwhile. I have the opportunity to review the first 3 issues of this upcoming series for all of you, and I'm going to go very, very light on spoilers, try not to spoil anything for you guys, but I want to give you a look at just what you'll be getting with Junkyard Joe. I was really excited for this opportunity, and I hope you'll enjoy the review. First, I thought we'd start out with just a quick refresher of where we first meet Junkyard Joe, which is in the pages of Geiger, also by Geoff Johns and Gary Frank. He's introduced as someone who's sent by the military to take down Geiger, the radioactive, futuristic superhero. We know he's from the past. In fact, toward the end of the trade paperback collection, we have sort of a timeline of this future unnamed series that Geoff Johns and Gary Frank are developing. And we know that Junkyard Joe comes from the 70s when he first came online. But it's in the pages of Geiger that we get our first look at this character. Here is that unnamed timeline I mentioned. This is in the pages of the Geiger trade paperback. I've also seen it online. I'm not sure if they provide this anywhere else, but it's a very cool roadmap of what looks like some of the characters they plan for this overall shared universe series that they're developing. And we can see in the pages as well the thing I mentioned here of when Junkyard Joe first comes online and where that is in relative to Geiger, who is again a futuristic part of the timeline. So we know that from when he first came online to all the way to Geiger at least, we know that Junkyard Joe has a huge span of time here. So the idea of him having his solo series, there was a level that I wondered, where exactly is this going to take place? Does it take place right when he comes online or somewhere within that history? A brief tip I seem to get was also included in the Geiger trade paperback, which is this little Sunday newspaper cartoon strip that seems to be set within Vietnam in the 70s, along with the Junkyard Joe kind of cover advertisement advertising that it's coming in 2022. And sure enough, within the pages of that first issue I reviewed, I got it digitally, so I was able to review on my iPad here. It looks like it begins in 1972, so right smack in the middle of the Vietnam War. We have Junkyard Joe introduced. He, is part of this platoon of men in the Vietnam War. They don't realize he's a robot humanoid kind of creature at first, but they discover that shortly. And what I really liked about this early issue was how we got to know all of these different servicemen as they were in the midst of the Vietnam conflict. And I think that I was surprised at how immediately I gravitated towards this cast of characters. I think that Geoff Johns and Gary Frank are by no means rookies to this kind of storytelling, but I think I was gripped by how much I was able to engage right from the beginning. I will say personally as well, I was more interested in the concept of Geiger, this futuristic, dystopian, radioactive, glowing man superhero kind of character. I was way more interested in that than a robot Vietnam soldier, at least at first. But I think that there's a very human story to tell throughout this series. We get to see kind of an inside look at, the plight of some of the veterans from that war and how the war kind of follows with them and the horrors of that war. And I made for such a deeper sense of storytelling and a much more grounded sense of storytelling. After that first issue, the narrative really shifts to the present day, and we follow primarily the character of Muddy Davis, who since the war has gone on to create a newspaper cartoon character named, you guessed it, Junkyard Joe. This is a pretty popular comic strip. You're kind of led to believe it's a kind of a cross between Beetle Bailey and the Peanuts as far as just the cultural impact and the legacy of the cartoon work. In those early issues, Muddy isn't even sure that Junkyard Joe really existed, and it's become this kind of cultural figure, but we haven't really seen what happened to Junkyard Joe since Vietnam. And there's much more storytelling that is involved after this point, but I won't spoil that for any of you guys. I really encourage you to go out and read these for yourselves. I, like I said, got to read the first 3 issues, and I can't wait to finish out this series. I'm hoping to see the trade collected maybe sometime next year, and I know I'm going to hopefully pre-order that volume. I also want to really mention something that I touched on at the beginning of the video, which is that proceeds from Junkyard Joe, especially issue number 1, they're releasing a special black and white Veterans Edition. The proceeds from that are going to be donated to the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans in honor of Geoff John's grandfather and to the Veterans Aid in honor of Gary Frank's grandparents, all 3 of which served during World War II. I think it was really humbling when I realized that this comic is not only showing more veteran stories in a really human way, but also some of the proceeds of this are actually funding veterans charities. I just think that's such a special thing and something that shouldn't be missed when we go into our local comic shops. There is so much more that can be said about this series, Junkyard Joe, even within the first 3 issues, which were incredible in my opinion. But I want to leave that for you to read and for you to find out. And hopefully when this goes to trade paperback, maybe sometime next year, I'm going to be delighted to do a full review of that volume. Geoff Johns just has a way of hooking me with his grounded characters and storytelling, and when you couple that with one of his frequent collaborators, Gary Frank, you just have a powerhouse book, and this is no exception, at least if the first 3 issues are any indication. The character models and the scenes are all rich and beautifully penciled and colored. If you like what you saw in my review of Geiger or even Batman Earth 1, you're already familiar with this creative team. So on October 5th, when you go into your local comic shop or retailer, please don't forget to pick up a copy of Junkyard Joe issue 1. I, for one, am already hooked, and I cannot wait to see what's in store with this creative team and their unnamed comic book universe. Let me know if you plan to pick it up in the comments below, or what you thought of this first look. And until next time, this has been The Comic Book Report. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this a like and a comment. And until next time, have a good one.